both in Pakistan, in South Asia, etc. We're going to try and make our connections with Shahid and with Elizabeth so that they can also hear into what is happening at the moment. But without losing any more time, could I please request Adnan to speak, and followed by Sanjoy. Yeah, I won't interrupt.
Thank you, Nadeem. And thank you, South Asia Center. Thank you, Sanjoy. Thank you, Shahid, and everyone, all of you for being here. As a Pakistani, this is a unique moment where in the past few months we have lost two legendary women, Madeeha and Asma Jahangir, of course. I had the honor of working with both of them. But as Nilanjan said, this is a moment to celebrate their life and to commemorate and celebrate. So let me say a few things about Madeeha and Ajoka. I'll say something about the context in which Madeeha and established Ajoka, something about her contribution and why it is relevant today. But to begin with, let me say that for me, Madeeha and Ajoka's work is a product of, not just a product of, but also shaped by and himself shaped three different things. So one is the times, and I'll quickly describe what I mean. And then the cultural descent.
Before that, can we just check if Shahid and Elizabeth, both of you can hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Elizabeth, Shahid, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Great, thank you. Sorry, Adnan, please continue.
Great for you to be here, both Shahid and Elizabeth. So three different circumstances: the times, the cultural descent, the cultural factor, and then also they call it the creative or the artistic side. And all three in some ways shaped Madeeha and Ajoka, and in turn were shaped by Madeeha. First, the times, the late 70s and the 80s. There come times in the history of nations which can only be called dark times. And the measure of a nation or a person is how they deal with those times. Through silence, acquiescence, or resistance. And no time, at least in my mind, I hope all of you agree, Pakistan had had more than a fair share of dark times, but none of them was darker than the time that we had in the Zia period. So first, that was the time. And the choice was whether we adopt silence, acquiescence, or resistance. But then resistance takes many forms. Political, social, mobilization. And I'm not here to say that one is superior to others. All of them are relevant, important. But the form that Madeeha and Ajoka took, cultural, is also very important. Is no less important. It's very important for the reason that it not only speaks to the here and now, but takes something from our collective consciousness, maybe collective unconsciousness also. It relates to that, builds on it, and then shapes something which also has long-term implications. And while all forms of resistance, even slow daring, have their role, cultural dissent also has a deep impact and a deep role. And the history of the part that we come from also, we have a long and rich history where cultural dissent has a long history, where we had both individuals who epitomize moments, social moments, who not only symbolize the voice of the people, but also in turn shape their voice. Historically, we had, at least in that part of Punjab, we had Mahmood, we had Bulle Shah, we had Faiz in our era, and many others. Madeeha was one of them also. So, when we hear the history of that resistance, when we hear such akhyan Bahmad majta hai, Bulle Shah sa marna nahi, gor pe koi gor. Aur Miyan gal suni na jawe sachi. Sachi gal suneve kikan Kachi hadam vich rachi. So those who have corrupt to their core, it's very hard. They can't accept the truth. Or when Faiz says that zulm ke maato lab kholo, chup rehne walo chup kab tak. Kuch hashar to inse uthega, kuch dood to na le jayenge. So that has a deep resonance. And that brings me to my third, I would say, like the influencer, the shaper of Madeeha and Gauhar's work, which is art and creative expression, which is also very different from, related to, but also very different from others. It is shaped by its circumstances, but also one quality of great art and great cultural expression is, it's very rooted, it's very connected to the struggles of here and now, today's struggle, which may seem very transient. But the quality of great art is, in relating to the here and now, to the transient, it also transcends that moment. It also relates to, resonates beyond its time. And all of those three, the time, the cultural descent, and call it the creative artistic expression, is the context of Madeeha and Gauhar's work. For Madeeha and Gauhar was at the center, call it a key protagonist, not just at the a passive recipient, but a key protagonist in all three of these. There were no darker times in Pakistan history than the time that we mentioned, and no need to mention where all kinds of things happen. Arrests, tortures, where every form of dissent was silenced. And the regime also realized that cultural forms of dissent were some of the most insidious and threatening. And they had to be silenced far more than just the formal, physical, political forms of protest. So Madeeha was at the center of it, as you saw that in the struggle for women's rights, human rights, minority rights, democracy. Both in the raw physical gory form, the 12th February 1983, the famous lathi charge at the Mall Road, that many of you, I'm sure here, would remember. The blood of very innocent women was spilled on the streets of Lahore. But also even before that, in government college, even in 1980 when Men Without Shadows was, and my friend Sarkar Imam is here, he can tell the history. How a play staged in a college in Lahore, in the government college in Lahore, became in some way the voice of the nation. How this regime felt threatened by a play staged in a college, and the extent to which it went to stop that play, and the extent to which all the protagonists, especially Madeeha, went to let the play happen, despite all the cost that she had to bear. And her struggle and protest was not just a struggle in the street.
So can you just say a bit about Men Without Shadows?
Men Without Shadows was a play that was staged with a play about against fascism. That was played, whereas formally it was against fascism, but it was very clear who it was about. Yes. It is about the Nazi occupation of France, but it was very clear who it was about when it was staged in Pakistan and why it mattered. And it was very clear to the people who...
It was the first initiative of those days when General Zia's draconian rule had completely silenced all political activities. Officially, under the martial ordinance, there was no complete ban on political activities. And this play, which was staged on the government college dramatic La Bukhari auditorium, it wasn't a political activity, it was a cultural activity of the college, at college level.
Yes.
But it was watched by all intellectuals, left intellectuals, and those who did not at that time dare to speak out. They all came to watch out, and even Munnu Bhai and many of the columnists on the left of the center or leftist, they wrote about it. And it was the first initiative in those days, or the first drop of rain against General Zia's regime after much long time.
Thank you, Siklan, he was a key part of that, so you remember that history.
And it was done in Urdu as...
No, it was done in government college, and it was...
It was translation.
So, hers was not just a political struggle, but she established first did these plays, but then established in 1983 Ajoka, and then staged Jalous in 1984, Badal Sarkar's play that you saw a little bit. Badal Sarkar and Jalous was an electrifying moment. So to me, there was life before Jalous and a life after Jalous. So it gave voice not only to political expression, but also political expression through creative cultural means. And it had an electrifying influence. And I remember the line that Brett who says, "In the dark times, will there also be singing?" Yes, there will also be singing about the dark times. And Ajoka's work, Jalous was the first. The next one was Chak Chakkar. Chak Chakkar was Bertolt Brecht's play, Caucasian chalk circle, about the struggle in an imaginary Central Asian state. The play is really about those who deserve ownership and other things, love and ownership, are far more deserving of those than those who are formal, call it property rights over those. So that was also my first play with the Ajoka. I participated in that play. More than 3 decades ago, was staged at, first time it was staged in Goethe Center and then in many other places. And still, I think every scene and every line of that play still rings in my ears. And especially the last ending, there was a character in that play called Mudabbir Khan in Ajdak in the original, who's a guy who comes and establishes just rule and then disappears. And I remember my friends Khalid Gill, who again passed away, and Tariq Azim, who were the narrators of the play, saying these lines at the very end, the last line that ended the play, about this guy who was in translation called Mudabbir Khan. और फिर देखा नहीं किसी ने मुदब्बिर खान को, उड़ गया जैसे तिनके की तरह, लेकिन याद रखा लोगों ने उसे, याद रखा उसे और उसके अजीबो-गरीब इंसाफ को। बच्चा उस माँ का प्यार करती है उससे जो, खेत उस दहकां का काम करता है उसमें जो, गाड़ी गाड़ी बांध की, and so on and so forth. Beautiful play, also resonated with people. So that was just the beginning of and I think creatively, Madeeha's work and Ajoka's work got a huge fillip. When Shahid Nadeem started writing, you heard you saw clips of several other plays, Bari, It, Leopard, many other plays. So those plays collectively are, call it our collective legacy. So they not only influence their age, but in some ways live beyond their age. Also had an influence in formation of new groups. I myself went to Lokres, and then there was Sanj, and Dastak, and Karachi, and Bang, and many other groups. So Madeeha in some ways helped seed many groups. But why is it relevant today? Let me end that. I think Shahid will talk more about it, and other people will talk more about other aspects of their work. Why is it relevant today? To me, it is even more relevant today than it was in that age. Partly because of the quality, the creative expression, as I said, that it resonates beyond its time. The themes that it talks to are also live beyond its time, are still relevant today. But also the context, unfortunately, in which those original plays and that work started in the 80s and also partly in the 90s is still relevant today. For there still are dark times. But one difference that we have, and for which I think Ajoka and this work is even more relevant today than it was at that time, is whereas that time the genesis was marked by state repression. Maybe for me the worst period of state repression in Pakistan's history. But as Toynbee says, the greater the challenge, the greater the response. It also spawned some legendary, both Madeeha, Asma, legendary responses. But today what we have is not just state repression, but also social suffocation. For a lot of harm that Zia did, textbooks and other things, is also many of the chickens of Zia's age are now coming home to roost. Just think of the life of Mashal Khan. And there I think it's theatre and cultural expression is even more important because it can not only deal with the, call it the black and white, so whether you're for something or not, which political activism and a lot of others can also do, but it can also deal far more effectively with the shades of grey, where it's not just clear, where, call it like, there are deep-seated biases among all of us, where it is hard for them to take a straight line, where theatre and cultural expression helps people to confront their own biases in a way that political activism and many other forms perhaps will not be able to. So they all have their own role. That's why I think that if you have to change the Pakistan of today, and not just Pakistan, the region, the world, theatre, cultural expression, Madeeha's work, Ajoka's work, and not only their own work, but the work that it spawned, is far more relevant today, not just and struggling against state oppression, but also social provocation. That requires many different tools, where cultural expression is far more relevant. The last thing I will say is, when the history of this age is written, Madeeha will be known as the better angel of our nature, as a key protagonist of our times. And as Brett said, in my time, streets led to the quicksand. Speech betrayed me to the slaughterer. There was little I could do, but without me, the rulers would have been more secure. This was my hope. So the time passed away which on earth was given me. And all I can say is Madeeha rattled the powers that be and made them far more insecure than they were earlier. Thank you.
Can I just check that Shahid, you and Elizabeth can hear everything that's happening here? Is that fine? Yeah?
Yes, that's
Okay, great, thank you. Sanjoy will speak now, and then Elizabeth will come to you.
Thank you, Nilanjan, and thank you, Nadeem and Nadir, for getting me here on this occasion. I wish, Shahid bhai, you were here. I'd love to give you a chappi puppy, and I was really looking forward to actually seeing you. As they say, you know, the good die young, and I'm sure wherever Nadira is, whether it's in Jahannam or in heaven, she must be organizing some kind of theatre protest out there, either against the devil or in paradise. So wherever you are, Nadira, more strength to you and continue to be everything that you stand for. The arts, as we all know, especially given what we see today, is always considered to be the other. And yet, every general across the age has always considered the arts as something that they should be threatened by. The artists, philosophers, dancers, singers, etc. Why? Because they reflect a real world. They put a mirror to your face. They tell you what you should know. And especially in today's age, and ages change, fundamentals change, but what doesn't change is the power structure. Those who have power, and finally it's always about power. And it's irrespective whether it's the left, right, center, man, woman, child, finally it comes down to power. And if you have power, you use it. And in most times, more times than others, you use it to be able to suppress everybody else who's not in a position of power. And artists across the age, perhaps because they're eccentric, perhaps because they have a volition to speak or write or act, perhaps because they in many ways reflect and many ways address the problem of the time. And for most people who are in power, that is a problem. I think what Ajoka did in its time was really take to the people a particular energy. Becky a little while ago was asking me, so how is street theatre different and what does it do to people? It's the exchange of energy. And when you're there real on the street, and the very fundamental of what you're trying to say, whether it's against sati or dowry or against a particular fundamental tradition or dictatorship or whatever it is, it's that message that you're exchanging with them, one to the other. That's what leaves an impression. That's what changes the mindsets. It's the WhatsApp of all times. It has the energy, it has the kind of spirit to be able to reach out deep into your soul, into your minds, and leave an impression which is indelible. For Madeeha, for Shahid Bhai, to have done what they have done in a time that we know there are good times and there are bad times and there is always difficult times, but to stay true to yourself, to your writing, to your art, to your fundamentals, it takes guts, it takes bravery, it takes an artist, his deepest belief in his form. Today, the world over, everywhere from America all the way to the Philippines, we see the rise of a new fundamental. And why is that a rise? Because people like you and me are complicit in silence. By being complicit in silence, we allow the bullier to bully. We allow the fascist dictator to be able to dictate to us. When we stand up, and we stand up for our rights, for each other, as people, united, there is nothing, there is no power on earth that can stop that movement. For Madeeha, for Shahid Bhai, for Ajoka, for all the artists, for the Pirizadas of the world, everybody who's fought against dictatorship, fought against a particular mahol, they have understood the intrinsic need for their voices to be heard. I've just come from New York today. I was in America for a couple of days last week. And again there I've been seeing the need for voices. Are they these voices? Is there that kind of fundamental urge where you can go out onto the streets and be able to move people, and if somebody stops you, you do it in the garden of your mother's house, or you do it in the university? No, there isn't. Because each of us have a need. We believe that success is about money. We believe that those skeletons in our proverbial cupboard are rattling so hard that somebody will open that and take you to task, and then all your resources will go away. For those people involved in the arts, and Jay's here, and Meera's here, and I'm sure many of you are here, choosing something or choosing the art is a lifestyle choice. You want to own an aircraft or a yacht? Join a bank. You want to make an impact. You want to transform the world. You want to share your soul, your ideas. You want to open your heart. And there's no other place but in the arts. To write a poem, to sing a song, to tell a story, to act, to enact, to hear. And why? Why do we do it day after day someplace, irrespective of the enormous odds that you face? Because you have a volition. You have no choice. You're helpless. Could Meera do anything else? Could Jay do anything else? Could I have done anything else? Could Madeeha have done anything else? Would Nadeem have given up his writing for a fancy job in Goldman Sachs? Of course not. because each of us are driven in a particular way. And what is it that the arts does? It gives us an opportunity to see a particular thing from many different perspectives. Is CNN right? Is Fox Television right? Is Imran Khan right? Is Nawaz Sharif right? Is Modi right? Is Rahul Gandhi right? In their own ways, everybody has a perspective. Like Rashomon, you can look at the fundamental of that one sentence in 6 or 7 or 10 or 20 different ways. And none of them will be wrong. Because each of us come to the table with a different perspective. And if you're part of the arts, that's the one thing that you can celebrate. Celebrate the fact that you will not have a dogma. Because you're always thinking, what if I thought like Nilanjan? What if I thought like Nadeem? What would Meera think? What would Jay perform? And in that thinking, you open your mind. And in opening your mind, you celebrate life itself. Madeeha's energy, I think, was in many ways an epitome of life in itself. She celebrated that. She walked into a room and you know that there was a star in your presence. Shahid Bhai, the quiet writer, at the back, doing his work, creating the expression. All of that, the energy of that, of making it possible, despite everything that stands against you, you need special people to be able to do that. And I think Ajoka in many ways embodied that spirit. When Pakistan and India, two places divided by, in many ways, the country that we are all part of today, the colonial rulers who decided one day that yes, let's divide and rule. Neither will survive and they will always rue the day that this happened. And they made that division and they split us, tore us asunder. And in the most difficult of times, I remember Madeeha and Shahid Bhai came and said, can we bring together these two countries? Can we bring together Zora Appa, who used to call me Jesus for some reason. Jesus, you have to make this happen. I need to see my sister. And Uzra Appa coming together on that stage to celebrate 60 years of separation. Separation from what? By whom? Are we not the same people? Do we not have the same color skin? Do we not have the same blood that flows through our veins? Do we not celebrate the same festivals? Do we not protest about the same problems? We are the same. And yet the politicians and the powers that be, and those behind the politicians and the powers that be, they ensure that the voice, that very voice that's able to bring together and celebrate the differences and celebrate the fact that we are one, that we are humanity, that we are people. For them, it's a question of power. And finally, in the telling of that story, be it through theatre, be it through her writing, be it through all the stuff that she did, everything that she did was about standing up to that power, making sure that we didn't keep quiet. And the reason that's brought me here, apart from me having an opportunity to say hi to Shahid, was really to say, there's war out there across the world. We tend to be polite because we're liberal, maybe left of center. We think there's a decorum. Forget it. If you're going to fight the war, you have to fight it with strategy and ensure that we win. And to be able to win, the only way to do it is through a collective voice. And it doesn't matter what nationality, what color of skin, what sex, what anything. We have to stand together to be able to defeat fascism and power in every sense of the word. And if you really want to celebrate Madeeha and Ajoka and everything that they stood for, then stand up and add your voice and join the movement, and don't keep quiet when there's an assault, whether it's on social media or on television or anywhere. It is your responsibility. It is our duty, our collective duty, to stand up, whether it's a Trump or a general or a Modi or a Duterte or whoever it is. And we can do it through the arts. And yes, they will feel threatened. And yes, we will bring about change, because change will come irrespective. So thank you all for being here, and thank you, LSE, for listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sandra. We're going to get to Elizabeth because I know there's a slight question of time for Elizabeth. But I think it is fair for me to say to everyone that it is quite apparent why Zohra Segal would be calling you Jesus after Elizabeth, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, and thank you very much for asking me to contribute to these conversations this evening. And it's been wonderful to listen to the speakers. And I especially like what Sanjoy said about not being quiet and making trouble, which of course is what Madeeha did a lot. Madeeha and I met in 1984 at a workshop led by Badal Sherpa, that great exponent of speak theatre. And at the time I was working in the East End of London, making work with mostly teenagers and young adults. And we made a lot of work in the realm, in the street, because a lot of the people I was working with didn't go to the theatre. They wanted to give young people a voice about issues that they cared about. We wanted to be in the public realm, not inside a theatre where their friends and family would see them. And we wanted to make theatre not for young people, but with and I think that's a really important development in working in the public realm since the 80s, because the legacy of the 60s and 70s generated a lot of theatre that was led by middle-class liberals telling other people what they ought to be thinking, rather than really reflecting always what they felt. And I was very struck when I went to work with the journalist in the hall in 1989 that the company that they sent to work with me in the workshop was really drawn from very diverse social backgrounds, and it was great to see that work that was really wonderfully mirrored in Pakistan. It was very inspiring for me. I think with Dara, that came more recently to the National Theatre, it was a fantastic achievement to have the first play by a Pakistani playwright at the National. And of course, Madeeha had directed the production, the original production in Hall, and I've seen the video, and of course it was absolutely wonderful. And as with work the street, she and Nadeem were doing lots of things there in that piece. They were ravishing the eye with fantastic visuals, which is so important when you want to arrest a wide audience. But it was entertaining, of course, beautiful dances and singing, but there was also challenging content that provoked people and made them reflect on really serious issues and informed us, but also did another really important job in theatre, which I think Sanjoy was talking about earlier, which was to uplift us, make us feel we can take action, and there is something that we can do, even though it may be a small thing. I think that in 1984, I'm thinking today about street theatre, and I was thinking about a big outdoor piece that I worked with people from the East End. We had these huge effigies of Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. We did a whole piece, a dance piece, and we burnt the effigy. And we didn't have to ask anybody's permission to do that. I don't think we could do that today. I saw the kerfuffle last week about the giant inflatable Trump. We had to get the mayor's permission to fly it above the procession. And it was very interesting to see that procession. That was a real piece of street theatre with all the witty placards, some carried by very young children. So I think street theatre, to be not the same as it was in the 70s and 80s, the public realm is a really important part in a democratic and an important part of our civil society, that we can take to the streets and express ourselves and to challenge and fight for the values that we think are important. But unfortunately, another reason why work in the public realm and street theatre has declined is because our public spaces are being increasingly privatised. We have shopping centres, we've got private developers. I walked along the foundation by the last weekend to see some, and I was met by security guards, not stopping us, but the public realm is privatised and it's increased, and that's a great shame. That's a threat to of our civic life, and of course we don't have anything of the struggle that we face and continue to face in Pakistan, but we need to be alert and vigilant. We worked a little bit, worked in the hall, but we became good friends, and we had a lot of fun together going to see theatre. I'm really, really proud of Madeeha. Her pioneering artistic vision did so much, as is mentioned, to further better conversation between the peoples of Pakistan and India. Her legacy will remain in the generations of theatre makers she has inspired and motivated. She was indeed really courageous and tenacious passion and commitment to social justice, particularly to the cause of women and the voices of those most marginalised in the community. Greatly missed. Her final resting place is in our hearts and minds. And I'd just like to take a quote from The Bridge of San Luis Rey by Sanjoy. There's a land of the living and a land of the dead, and the bridge is love, the only survivor, the only meaning. And finally, another quote from Langston Hughes' poem. Hold fast to dreams, but if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is the barren field frozen with snow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I should mention here that when we started the event, I had introduced you as well as Shahid. I'm aware that there's a question of time. You're an hour ahead of us in Italy, so if you can stay longer, we'd be very grateful, but if not, I understand that you have to leave. Shahid, would you like to speak now? We see a still photograph of yours, which is quite dynamic because you have quite a lot of light behind your photograph.
In front, it's sort of birthday candles.
Yeah, Sanjoy is saying it's a bit like birthday candles, but if you can switch your camera on, then that's fine. If not, we are more keen to hear you. I should mention to the audience here that earlier in the year, Shahid was here at LSC. The South Asia Centre, when it started in 2015, one of the important things that we think we did was to actually foster amongst the students the need to set up a South Asia student society. Because as you can imagine, there is an India society, there is a Pakistan society, there is a Sri Lanka society, there's a Bangladesh society, but there was no South Asia society. And my dream is that one day the South Asia Society will organize a cricket match which will have a team of South Asians against a fully English team. But that is my dream for the moment. Anyway.
You have to define fully English.
Yeah. So one of the things that the South Asia Society does do very, very successfully is that every year the students organize something called the South Asia Development Conference. And on one such platform, Shahid was invited and he came to London and he spoke, and I had the privilege of being in that audience and heard him, and I don't need to tell anyone that he was magnificent, but if anyone wants to question what I'm saying, you're going to hear it now all over again. Shahid, do you want to start?
Thank you so much. Hi, Elizabeth, Sanjoy, and thank you, LSE. I wish I was there and had the honor of receiving that warm hug from Sanjoy. But I think this is the second thing, and I'm very happy. Actually, I'm speaking from the house where Ajoka was born and where Madeeha, her memories are all around her work, her purpose, and for the beautiful things she did from all over, especially from me. So this is a good place to be, to feel the presence and that presence with you. I think as far as the political context is concerned, Adnan has very eloquently, simply put that context before. And Sanjoy obviously has literally from the inspiration and has actually a witness to not only what Nadeem called Madeeha Gauhar, but also her ability and meeting, and which led to this year operation.
Shahid bhai, put your video off because you're breaking. I don't think there's enough strength in that signal because we're not being able to. Video band karke fir aap.
Should I? So is it any better now? The audio?
Yeah, now carry on. It should be
okay.
better.
So basically, I think what is now what I want to emphasize is passion and the commitment and the devotion Madeeha had. She was so deeply, totally devoted to theatre that everything was secondary. Myself, the family, her own health. For example, when she was ill and she had to have an operation in Delhi, then she arranged operation dates in such a way that we were supposed to have a festival in Delhi, and special festival. She organized the festival, then the festival, and all people realized on the last festival that on the next day she had an appointment at the next hospital. And Adnan mentioned competition circle, Chakra. Not only this was one of our first days as a director and as a director of yoga, also that was our last day. The new production of Chakra was presented at the Pakistan National Council of Arts Auditorium in Islamabad on 20th April, just 5 days before that. And even literally on the deathbed, she was directing new actors. A lot of people, obviously, the play first production was in 1985, and then they had been followed by us. So literally, till her age was in God, couldn't, but she could listen herself on downstairs, and she would come. Then she would, with the help of Mahmood, she would come to the balcony and see the costumes. She wanted to show that their bright costumes, and people have taken care of the details. So that was kind of fitment she had with theatre. The second thing is that obviously, as it has been discussed, that the content of our plays, my plays, was socially relevant and always related to our social situation, although if the plays were based on mythology or adaptation match, but still it's a very clear relevance to audience. So that was just one part of contribution. The other was that she was always very she considered the importance of aesthetics and cultural and theatrical sort of beautification of a production. So the use of music, the use of whatever setting she had anticipated, and the use of sound and humor and costumes. So she wanted to show that people would come to see it for first days, had a good time, and entertaining moments which gave them kind of aesthetic satisfaction, a cultural sort of enrichment, and at the same time also gave them some motivation to change things from them. So balance of entertaining and aesthetically satisfying form, but very linked to the traditional theatre of Punjab or South Asia and contemporary content. I think this combination was key to Joka's or Madeeha's success. Because never a dull moment, even very, very grim plays on grim themes like Killing or the sort of bright burning, but still there was something which people able to relate as something which gave them as pride in their culture and also kind of satisfaction. So she was able to establish all independently that it was possible to theatre the most difficult things when there was strict censorship, there was a hostile government, and there was the suspicious society which suspected that these people were somehow up to subversive activity, and the problems of finance, the problems of finding the female actors, the problems of finding a venue. So she almost single-handedly, for 30 years, she established that it is possible to carry on with theatre, which is most good subject, most book subjects, and subjects which would sort of no one even would dare to discuss even private issues of blasphemy or issue of the adultery of Pakistan, East India, or treatment of religious minorities, especially of these. So she was able to all these issues, not only because of good scripts, but also because of her pitch and her defiance. And she really loved a fight, and almost always with that fight. So I think this is the phenomenon which we see very rarely. And Alhamdulillah, I mean, start from the salon, and then people. So there it was basically theatre, and then moved to Wright Institute was a blessing because at that time no other name was available. We found another lawn at the back art stage, and then we have carried on for more than 12 years. And then really when the halls of arts concerts opened for us, we were able to have more ambitious productions, more complex production, and really expand with new technology as well as the traditional so basically, I think that what she has shown as a woman and as a theatre activist in Pakistan, that nothing is impossible if you have the commitment, you have the courage, and theatre is one platform. Even when all other platforms are been denied to you, theatre is still there. You can almost get away with murder, can challenge the ruling ideology, the religious dogma of ideological constraints, and you do it in such a way that even those who are the target of your attacks, they also enjoy. They also either have a laugh or they are embarrassed, but they are it's possible on the platform of theatre in Pakistan today to literally discuss any subject, but where this subject is discussed, where it's communicated is such that you don't have to really provoke extremist elements, and you keep on sort of expanding your space, find more and more space, and we get more and more audience. We get young people, and we get people from different classes, and yoga is really something which people who are denied cultural expression society, because on the one hand there is ideological suppression, on the other hand there is this market-oriented suppression the media, which has really also which denies the freedom of expression, the ambitions of people. But theatre is there to this space is still there, where you can create new things, you can give a message of hope, and you can challenge the forces of oppression, of darkness. And Madeeha had kept that platform live and entertaining and well-adapted and at the same time meaningful. And I'm sure Ajok, with her legacy and with the memory and the inspiration which we get from her through her book and through memories of work with her, I think we will get on that journey. We are planning to have a theatre festival in September. Madeeha's memory 3-day festival, celebrate her equatorial work and also have a retrospect of all her achievements over these decades. And we are getting a lot of support from all over, from young people and from cultural activists. And I think that as we on 15th of May, we have present on celebrating Madeeha. So really, this is a life we celebrated to cherish. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shahid, especially because this is something I want to say. I understand very well that this could not have been easy for you to do. Your